Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donohue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy.
Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donohue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. I'm just checking out on my computer, and it says the pollen level is high in New York. So if you hear me getting nasally or scratchy in the throat, I am sorry. In my throat, I am really sorry.
Stop breathing, Margot. 1 star.
Jeez, Margot, with the breathing and the cackling.
Oh, half star.
We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. Today we're talking about true crime and men in bow ties and leather pants.
Yeah!
It's going to be awesome. Just to let you know, we are on Facebook. We do have a basic Facebook page. That's where people go to complain about our language. Just a reminder, we do use salty language in this program.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah. We're talking about strippers and murder, so get ready for that. We have
Dick.
eggplant emoji. We have a private Facebook group. You do have to answer 3 questions in order to join the group, and it's a pretty cool place. We like to hang out there. That's where we're probably the most interactive.
Yes.
So you'll type in What a Creep Podcast Group. Once again, answer the questions. We're on Twitter at CreepPod because somebody had What a Creep on Twitter for over 10 years and never used it.
Creep.
We're also on Instagram. Please be sure to follow us on all the social media places. We also have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. You can send your comments and suggestions there for creeps and non-creeps, and you can also request some stickers. I have a stack of envelopes right by my laptop, you guys. It's going out this weekend, I promise you. So if y'all want some stickers, please let me know. Anywhere you are in the world, don't be shy, ask.
Yes.
And Sonia, can you tell them about the website?
Yes, you can go to whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you ever wanted to know about the podcast, but we're afraid to ask. It has links to all of our episodes, except for the first 4 seasons, which are behind the Patreon wall. All of our episodes' sources are there. Every episode has sources, and there is a link to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and tote bags and masks and journals. And when I say masks, I mean face masks, not Halloween masks. No. Like, I'm going to dress up as Sonia and Margot for Halloween.
I'm going to cackle and breathe a lot.
Yeah. That's adorable. You're a creep. You're a creep. No, I mean face masks. Someone posted in our group where they bought the Damn It Max tote bag for their dog Max to keep all of his toys and things in. He looks very innocent to me. I don't know if he deserves that Damn It Max, but I love that it's a thing. So do that. Do you want to tell him about the Patreon page?
I want to thank the following people for joining our Patreon page. Jen, Dina, Christina, Felicia, Amy, Gary, Jessica, and William. Thank you all so much.
Welcome.
Welcome to the Terror Dome, as we like to say.
Welcome to the Resistance.
Exactly. You are tributes. We have our first 4 seasons, soon going to be 5, by the way, on the Patreon wall. We put out 2 bonus episodes a month, and we also have a newsletter that everyone really seems to enjoy. We have a very high open rate, I notice, which is awesome.
That makes me so happy. I do actually really love writing it. I just have to constantly put a calendar reminder in to do it. That's all. And then when I write it, I love it. It's so fun.
It's so fun, you guys. It's worth it just for that. But look, if money's tight, we totally understand that. We get it. Just, send us a review on wherever you get your podcasts. We were on Good Pods again. We're like number 6 on indie podcasts. I mean, hello. iTunes to Mama Tried and Jeff. Thanks for leaving us 5-star reviews. Wherever you get your podcast, leave stars. Or once again, ask for stickers, slap it on your laptop, go to the WeWork station or wherever you are, let everybody see it. Make fun
tell
of
a friend.
Yes, tell a friend.
They tell a friend, and then they tell 2 friends, and they tell 2 friends, and so on, and so on.
Everything's organic here, you guys. You could tell. All right, Sonia, I think I did everything
I think so.
Yeah, we got to jump into this tale. You and I'm going to bring up my notes. You and I were talking off the air. You're not really familiar with this case.
No, not at. I mean, I know of it. I've definitely heard the title, but I did not watch the documentaries about it. So this is all new to me. You're all going to get fresh reactions, which is usually ew and bleh.
There are some twists and turns here. We're talking about the Chippendales murder. This happened in 1987 in New York. We're going to talk about showman Steve Banerjee. He is the person that helped start Chippendales. And boy, this story, it's going to include stories about, arsenic and gopher holes. It's going to talk about lots of holes. It's going to talk about women and drinking. And it's going to talk about sweaty men and disco. It's going to be quite a ride. So
yes.
Let me just begin. Showman Steve Banerjee grew up in Bombay, now known as Mumbai, and came to America, California specifically, in the 1960s, hell-bent on becoming a success story. Starting with owning his own gas station and then a nightclub in Los Angeles, his prospects seemed pretty underwhelming until a club customer turned friend, turned guy who would do anything for a few bucks for him, encouraged shy Banerjee to play disco music and attract a female crowd. What started with female mud wrestling by future creep subject Paul Snider, we'll talk about him, turned the Destiny 2 Club into Chippendales, which was the first premier spot for male exotic dancers.
Yes, not where you see the chipmunks from the Disney stuff. Not
No.
those Chippendales.
Not
your
Alvin and Simon.
Your kids will be disappointed.
No Theodore there. Once Banerjee brought on Emmy-winning producer Nick DeNoia, the show became the premier male stripping empire, and it took over L.A., New York, America, and then went around the world. Eventually, Banerjee lost control of himself, DeNoia, and his empire brought down by his own greed, paranoia, and addiction, which caused the death of one of his biggest enemies. It's trigger warnings for this episode. Murder. I wrote sexual language. We're talking about stripping. We're talking about dicks. I mean, just dicks. Dicks aplenty.
Dicks. Dick.
And some talk about drugs, but mostly murder and disco.
Yeah. Disco. I love it.
We all love that. My sources are Wikipedia, allthatisinteresting.com, ABC Chicago. There's the special Secrets of the Chippendale Murders. I have links, by the way, for everything. The Independent UK, Oxygen, The Daily Beast, Curse of Chippendales. It's not really a curse. It's a misleading title. There's no curse.
Yes.
I was wondering where the curse was going to start. There's no curse. It's just us cursing, but there's no curse.
Got it.
There's the Welcome to Your Fantasy podcast from Gimlet Media, which is excellent. And finally, Sonia, Deadly Dance, The Chippendales Murder.
Yes!
It's a book by K. Scott McDonald and Patrick Montes Dioca. I don't know Spanish very well, so I'm apologizing now. Yikes, are you ready for this shit? Are you ready?
I'm ready!
So Steve Banerjee comes to America in the 1960s. And he's shy, a little pudgy. He's from Bombay and Mumbai. And he comes to America and he's like, I just want to be really fucking rich. I want to be really successful.
Yeah, don't we all?
Don't we all? And it's an immigrant story, working hard, taking on the jobs other people don't want, and then having an empire. And so he owned a gas station, which did really well. Gas is pretty, steady. And then he owned a nightclub. And the nightclub he had a terrible band that came with the contract. But the contract was only like $1,000 a month. And he kept the band. And he's, by the way, super cheap.
Yeah. Okay.
Some really rich people, that's how they get rich. Like they're just...
What kind of music was the band, out of curiosity?
You're talking to like early 70s. So maybe not quite Bad Company, but somewhere adjacent to that. It was not a stereo. It was a band. And it's really hard to get me to watch a band. Like, it's got to be I just lost my ability to show interest in these things. So
yeah. No, if honestly, I know that this is lame, but if I walk into a bar and live music is playing, I turn around and I just walk right back out.
Because you're yelling
That's
the
me.
whole time. Yeah.
That's me. Yeah. Because I don't want to yell the whole time, and I'm old
Yes.
and lame. And nope, sorry, I don't want to say lame. Also, just a total goober.
Yes. You're not a goober. But anyway, one of his customers is the super for the building next door to this place. And he comes in a lot for drinks, and they become good friends. His name's Ray Cologne. And Ray says to him, dude, disco is happening right now. It's mid-70s. Get rid of that band, put in a stereo system, get a light system going, and attract women. Because wherever there are hot women dancing, dudes show up.
This is true.
Which is all fact. And so that's
Yes.
what he started to do. And he got a nice disco light system going. And then he had things like, he was all into marketing. Mondays was ladies' night. And women came in free until 10 o'clock at night. Then he had a night where, get this, every drink was 10 cents. 10 cents until midnight. And then the place
Wow.
closed at 2. And then
That's
the price
how
would
you-
yeah.
That's how you get alcohol poisoning. Just saying.
I'm sure those bathrooms were disgusting.
Yeah.
But people showed up. I mean, there was a different night every single night. And then around LA, what happens is that, bars copy each other. What works over there, someone's going to try to do over here. And he's getting competition. He's super fucking competitive. He can't handle anybody else being successful at something that he's successful at. He just can't fucking handle it. So he's always looking for an edge. It's exhausting. So Ray and him start going to these clubs that are popular, and mud wrestling was a thing.
So weird.
It's so strange people were into that. There's in the movie, is it Stripes, where they have the mud wrestling scene with
Yeah,
John
I think
Candy
that's in there. Yes.
with Rubber Band Man on the soundtrack?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good song.
That's a great song. But it's a pit of mud, and there's women wrestling in it. And they're wearing bikinis, and the bikini tops come off, and people get all aggro. It was a thing.
Yeah.
Paul Snider was really into this thing. He was married to Dorothy
Stratton.
Sorry, I kept wanting to say Dandridge for a second there. Those are two separate people. Dorothy
Definitely two
Stratton,
different people.
18 years old when Paul married her. She was living in Vancouver, brings her to LA. We talked about her when we talked about our Playboy episode, Hugh Hefner.
Yes.
He wound up killing Dorothy in 1980 when she was 20.
It was fucked up. It's a movie called Star 80, by the way. That's a really good movie. It's a fucked up story.
It's a terrible story. There's lots of true crime shows out there that also talked about it.
Yeah.
So Steve was like, his name is Somen, but when he came to LA, he changed it, an American name. So sometimes he says Somen, sometimes he says Steve. But anyway, Steve said the guy was kind of creepy. He gave him the creeps. Like, he didn't really. Yeah. So they did find that there were these male strip shows, and they were doing really well. And it brought a lot of women, and women just loved to hang out with each other and scream and get drunk and watch dudes dance. He's like, well, I got a stage. I can do that. I have disco music. I'll pay some guys. And he hires them. And these are guys that are, this is not a thing. This is not.
Correct.
It is not, there were strip joints, but that's a whole other thing versus a strip show with men. And he starts bringing these men in, and the women start showing up. And that's when he starts saying, well, let's have some uniformity. We'll have them wear black pants. We'll have them wear, like the Playboy look. They'll have the cuffs. They'll have the collar. They'll be shirtless. They have to be at least 6 feet tall. They have to be fit. And they have to mostly be white. He was very adamant. He wanted white money, and he wanted white people for the brand. He was Indian. But
got it.
Sometimes people want just for themselves, and they're not there to share with anyone else.
Yeah. And this, I think, we should probably note, too, that there was definitely a rise in feminism in the late 60s and in the 70s, too. So I think there was like an empowerment thing going on here, too, where like women were like, yeah, I'm going to go out and watch these dudes strip, and I'm going to throw money at them the way that dudes do to women.
Yeah. What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Exactly.
We have to understand also, I mean, not a lot of people know this. People love to blame things like, oh, families are falling apart now. It's divorce and stuff like that. Like, In 1974, women were finally allowed to get their own credit card in America.
Right?
1974.
Yes.
So this is a few years after that. There is feminism on the rise. There's also the pill, and that's becoming less and less of a big deal. People, Mary Tyler Moore said it on her show, so it was like, it was totally fine. This is also before AIDS. Super important time. People were boning everywhere.
Yeah. And Roe versus Wade passed.
Yes. All of this is happening.
Yes.
And disco's popular. Saturday Night Fever does really well. So then disco music is really popular. And and women are showing up. And he knew how to market to women. And his whole thing was that's who he wanted as his customer base. Not gay men, not black men, just white men and white women. And it was okay black women were in the crowd. That was fine. But he didn't want too many. It was very much a white brand.
Right.
This is what he said.
Yes.
And he said that, the inside part in his head, he said it out loud.
He said out loud. Yes. Said the quiet part out loud.
Said the quiet part out loud. That's the better way to put it.
Fucking creep.
He hires a guy, Nick DeNoia. And Nick DeNoia was from New York City, and he was a children's television producer. He did some television called Unicorn Tales in New York City. And
he played the tail.
He played the unicorn tail. Let's just stick with the phallic symbols. Handsome, really hardworking, and a perfectionist. He taught at like the professional school, like the Fame School. He was a teacher there. And he knew about dancing and he knew about marketing. And he had left New York to go to L.A. to kind of find himself. He was married to Jennifer O'Neill, the actress, for a year. That's one of the reasons he moved to L.A. She's been married over 10 times, by the way.
Whoa!
Look up Jennifer O'Neill Wikipedia and look at just marriages.
Wow, you'd really think after like the 7th time, you're like, maybe I'm done.
I'm not into this anymore. No.
Yeah, maybe marriage is not my thing.
As my friend Margaret would say, it shows optimism.
That's true.
Steve is hired to be a part of the show, and he's like, well, Steve, I'm sorry, Nick is hired to be a part of the show, and Steve says, do whatever you want. You need to take this to the next level. I want to open other clubs. I want to because all these other clubs are starting to do male dance reviews.
Right.
He needed to have the edge. And so Nick said, fine, but you got to leave me alone, leave me in charge. And he got a certain kind of salary, and he started whipping these guys into shape. And then all of a sudden it went from just like jazz hands and just kind of half-assing a routine to there was whole productions. And one of their big things was like they had the cop that showed up on the bike and then looked like he was fucking the bike. I'm not kidding you. There was a guy who was like one of these
You're under
documentaries.
arrest for being sexy.
And that horn. Woo! Woo! There's a fireman that shows up. There's all kinds of guys. And at the end, it always ends with the perfect man. The perfect man's always white.
Yeah, of course, right?
These women are showing up by the hundreds. And it's money. And he also had it that the clubs were only open to women until like 10 o'clock. So the only women were in the crowd.
They probably felt safe.
Yes, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. I don't like these things when I'm in somebody's house. If I'm in your living room and a guy shows up, starts standing, it's very uncomfortable.
Oh, I have a story about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yes.
But if it's at a club with a bunch of other women, yeah, that's fun. That's, it's just part of the whole atmosphere. They get the idea. They find a space in New York, and it holds 1,000 seats. And they rent it, and they go to New York, and it sells out for 2 years.
Wow.
1,000 women every night showing up. And they just are doing the show over. And Nick was a tyrant. He was very, there was one way to do it. That was Nick's way. But they were good. By the time they were done, they were really good. Nick also, just being a natural performer, he became the face of the brand. He would do Sally Jesse Raphael, the Phil Donahue show, all the interviews. So they all started calling him Mr. Chippendales, which really pissed off Steve Banerjee.
Right.
So Steve and Nick are having a problem. And Nick's saying, dude, you're successful because of me. And then Steve saying, no, it's my money it's me making you successful. I brought this to you. You just polished it up. And so they're,
oh my God,
they're
their
clashing.
egos are going to ruin everything.
Everyone knew when they were having an argument to just take off. If they're on the phone yelling at each other, find some place, because you're just going to get the brunt of that when they're done.
Yes.
So they go out to dinner one day and they're arguing. And then they take out a napkin and they start writing on the napkin. They write a new contract. And Steve says to Nick, I'm going to own LA and New York, those clubs. But when if you take them on the road on tour shows, you can have 50% of the door. You can have 50%. And then next, Nick said, okay, but make sure it says in perpetuity. And Steve doesn't know what that word means because English is a second language. I don't think a lot of people even know what it is, but it means forever and ever and ever, like Scientology level forever.
Yes.
Billions and billions of years. Like this will always happen.
Yes.
Nick does really well and starts taking the show on the road. And then Steve is getting picky because he's like, Hartford, Connecticut, that's only 60 minutes away. That's not really going on tour. Like, and Nick's like, fuck you. Yes, it is. If it's not New York.
Yeah.
They're selling out like fucking crazy.
Yes.
Everywhere they go, they're the big show. And they only play in theaters, not bars. And thousands of women just show up. It's just making a shitload of money. And,
wow.
And what happens with this is that when you have a cash business like that and it does a lot of money and there's not a lot of great accounting going on, the mob shows up. And so the mob is starting to like take their share. And then Steve is getting pissed about that and Nick is getting pissed about it. It's all, crazy. And their egos are getting out of control. And Steve is constantly trying to nitpick, like, well, how much did you do last night versus tonight? How come you're at this place versus that place? He's very, very, nitpicky.
Dude could have just enjoyed his success.
He gets married. He has a kid. Just live your life in California and enjoy the money coming in. But he can't.
Nope.
No.
Nope.
And Nick is a hothead. He's not easy either. Oh, my favorite story. So another big thing, calendars. Chippendales had a calendar in the 80s every year, and they sold them out. They made like 100,000 the first year, and they were sold out right away. They would sell millions of these stupid calendars. Steve then was like micromanaging the calendars. No black men in the calendars. And told the guys, there was like one or two black guys that worked for him for years. And he's like, you're the only ones. And he's like, I'm not going to hire any more. So you have to be good. Like, I don't want to hear about your friends. I don't want to hear about anybody, no Asian, no, nothing. Yeah.
What a creep. He's such a fucking racist creep.
In the middle of the 80s, it was either 84 or 85. I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly which one. But Banerjee fucked up with the calendars. That was the year that he made a year's worth of calendars where every day ended on the 31st. You know that whole thing? 30 days are September, April, June, and November. Yeah. All the rest of 31. They were all 31. So he had to recall them all and then try to sell them again. And this is like in February by this time he finds out. So yeah, good luck with that.
They bought new calendars by then, but okay.
He's pissed off about that. And it's just indicative of just like he's starting to kind of lose it. Mm-hmm. Also, what's going on is there's other band. Nick DeNoia is trying to start his own thing, his own group, and call it U.S. Mail. You get it, like the mail, but the mail.
I don't get it. No, I get it.
It's like postage, Sonia. And Steve knows about this, and they're arguing a lot. They're back and forth, kind of arguing. And Steve is using drugs, and they're both using drugs. Nick, by the way, is a closeted gay man and is being secretive about that. There's all kinds of secrets going on here. There's also touring going on overseas, and they're doing well overseas. But it's all coming to a head. They hate each other. Nick wants to do his own thing. Steve wants to do his own thing, but they need each other, but they don't need each other. Steve then goes back to Roy, that guy I told you about that used to come to the old club. And he says to him, well, first of all, I forgot to mention, one of the things he used to like to ask Roy in the 70s when he had clubs that would compete with him, he'd say, what would happen if that place burned down? Then they don't have the competition, right? And Roy would be like, yeah, I guess not. I guess you wouldn't have the competition. So Steve gave him $7,000 and said, make that club disappear. And Roy goes, I'm right on that. And then Roy totally forgot about it. He's like, oh, he was drunk when he said it.
Thanks for the $7,000. How did I get this? I don't remember.
This is 1970s money. Like that's like 30 grand or something today.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. He forgets. He tries to blow him off. He's like, nah. I'm going to ask a guy. I'm going to ask a friend and see if what they want if they can do it, whatever. He tried a couple of times, but he half-assed it. Like, it's just like the garbage can got on fire. But this was like stuff that he was interested in doing.
He just threw a lighter at it. He was like, meh.
And then it didn't work.
Yeah.
And Steve every once in a while would like come around to him and it would be like, what about that time I gave you $7,000? What did you do then? And he would be like, oh, I don't know, man. Okay, I'm going to find somebody. And then Steve one day says to him, I want to get rid of Nick. And I want to really get rid of Nick. And Roy goes, okay. And he says, I gave you $7,000. I want you to use that as money to get rid of Nick. And then he's like, it's going to cost more than $7 grand. He does hire a guy named Louie in LA, Louie. And Louie is a heroin addict who badly needs the money.
Yeah.
He puts Louie on a plane with a firearm and his heroin. This was 1987. No one was checking your bags then.
Nope.
Louis does a fix in the bathroom, flies the red eye, wakes up. They go to Times Square. They go to Burger King. He does another fix in the bathroom. He gets a burger. And then they go to Nick's office. And they call up and say, hey, I'm a dancer. Can I try out for you? And Nick got these calls all the time.
Right.
And he was always like, yeah, sure, come up. Because usually they were cute boys and usually they had drinks on them. And so he was yeah, sure, okay, I don't care.
Yeah.
This guy shows up, Louis, and he goes to Nick and says, are you Nick DeNoia? And Nick says, yes. He goes, well, though, you're dead. And he takes the gun and he shoots him right in the eye.
Holy shit.
Yep. They get out of the building. They get lost in a crowd. And because they're both not New Yorkers, they get lost trying to find their way out. So they wind up circling the building twice.
Oh, my God.
The cops don't get them. They get back to L.A. The cops just aren't sure who did this. Everybody starts to say, that's Steve. Steve hated him. They hated each other. He wanted to get rid of him.
Yes.
Who else would do this? And the cops were like, nah, we already talked to Steve. He didn't do it. It must be someone else. It's got to be some boy in the gay kid or something.
Right. He wouldn't lie. He wouldn't lie. We asked him point blank, did you do it? And he said no. So I'm sure he's telling the truth. I mean, who would lie to the cops? It's fine.
Nick is buried in New Jersey. He was 48 years old. He was young. He was born in 1941 and he was killed in 1987. His family's devastated. They were a very close Italian family in Jersey. And the group and everyone is devastated, but they just go back on the road because they don't know what else to do. And also the dancer said, we only knew each other. We didn't have other friends. Like, we kept doing what we were doing because we didn't know what else to do.
Where does all that money go?
That's a good question, Sonia. Steve is friends with a guy who's a pilot and has a couple of private planes, some that can go international. Steve goes all over Europe to different banks and leaves money there. Stacks and stacks and stacks of cash. Mainly in Switzerland.
Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
In the meantime, they're starting to go across the UK, and they're also doing really, really well. And Steve is now mad at the new guys that are taking over the UK. And there's another group, Adonis, that's doing really well. First Chippendales lands, and they're big. And then, what happens? People put up their own groups.
Yeah.
It's the early 90s now. There's a little bit of a different, taint to it. Not a taint, what am I trying to say? But a flavor to it. It's different from the 70s. They needed updating anyway. And so this new group is going across the UK. And Steve is like, okay, Ray, I need your help again because this guy, I need somebody to get rid of this guy that's running this other tour.
My God.
And he's like, are you kidding me? They're in England. They're traveling. How am I supposed to do that? He goes, I don't care. 25 ahead. And get this guy and get his choreographer and, these two dancers. If you could get them too. And he finds a fella. And this man's name, Sonia, he was a convict, an ex-con, kind of a doofus from the Midwest. His name was Errol Lynn Strawberry Bressler.
Strawberry.
His nickname was Strawberry, and people call him Barry for short.
All right.
He's a yokel, like Clevis the yokel. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it for 25 grand a piece. Sure. Mm-hmm. They fly him to London, and then he takes the train up, and he's going to Blackpool. Blackpool is kind of like Coney Island.
Okay.
There's a beach, there's a pier, but it's, it's kind of cheesy. It's kind of its own thing. He gets there, he goes, boy, the food's terrible, and the people have funny accents. I don't understand people.
Fucking ugly American.
It's just the worst ugly American. And Ray Cologne says, okay, you can't bring your gun with you on the plane. He goes, so one way he thought of to kill them was, he said, in my yard, we have gopher holes. The gophers make these holes that are huge. And you could you stick your foot in there, you'll break your foot. Like they're huge and they're a menace. So we put this poison that kills the gophers in the holes. It's in the hole. It's in the hole. Okay. And so he gives him this little amount of poison. And he says, follow them. Knock them on the head and then give them the poison and then take off.
Okay. Sure. Seems like a great plan. What
Solid
could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Strawberry's not exactly a big muscular guy. And these are big muscular guys because they're all at least 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
They're all big guys that work out all the time. They're buff. And he realizes as he's following them around Blackpool, this is a stupid plan. Like there's nothing good that can happen from this. I can't knock them out. And if they just get sick, they're going to beat me up. Like, what am I doing here? This is a terrible idea. He leaves.
This is a very bad idea.
Hey-oh.
Hey-oh.
Hey-oh. All right. So he comes back to America. He goes back to Vegas. This is one of his hot spots he likes to go to. And he goes right to the FBI and says, look, this guy hired me. I considered doing it, but I realize it's stupid. If I give you their names, will you give me a deal? Would you? And they said,
will you put me in witness protection?
Exactly.
I want a new name really bad. The only way
Cantaloupe.
I know to change.
Don't call me Cantaloupe.
The only way I know to get a new name.
He starts recording calls with Steve and Ray saying like, hey, I went there, but I couldn't get to the guy. And Steve just starts admitting everything. Like, oh man, I told you to kill 3 of them. Why did you not kill them? And I need to, this is important, man. I gave you one job and why couldn't you do it? He totally gives himself away.
What a dum-dum.
He's a total fucking dum-dum. And it's just like, look, he's been on coke for years. He was just, at some point you're going to get caught when you're doing all this shit. And he was up to all kinds of shenanigans. And he was doing drugs. And he was trying to and the guy said that ran the show in England that Steve was such a pain in the ass. He would call him every night and ask how many tickets did they sell, how many were sitting, what songs did they use, how much did they make. I mean, it was relentless. You couldn't enjoy yourself. Bless you.
Thank you.
So Steve gets called in by the police. 94. Nick's been dead since 1987.
Yeah.
No leads. The cops went to his funeral thinking the killer would show up there. By the way, Steve wanted to go to that funeral. And Nick's family's like, fuck you. You're responsible.
You killed him.
Yeah, you got him killed. Fuck you. Steve is sent to prison. He's sent to jail. And he basically makes a deal, 26 years. And he'll serve that time. and he's going to lose everything. So Steve, a month in, dies by suicide. And he uses a sheet to hang himself.
Yeah.
And because he's dead, nothing is about his estate is wrong because the guy that did everything is now dead. So supposedly his wife has access to that money. But she never knew where the money was because Steve had put it all away over the years and nobody knew where it went. And then the wife, so then she died in 2002 from cancer. And his son has been looking for that money for years and years and years and
oh my gosh,
has not been able to find it. He now works as a dancer. And
wow.
he is a male exotic dancer now. By the way, here's another story about Steve. His lack of sense of humor and his ability to try to sue people. There was a radio station in Arizona in the mid-'80s that wanted to do a show called Chippendales, which is all fat guys that do stripping. And Steve sent them a letter. Like, this is private property. You cannot use this.
What a piece.
Yeah.
What a piece of shit. Did he go after SNL, too, for the famous
well, that's
skit?
Satire. But I think if he could have, he would have.
Right.
I think.
Also, I love that skit. It's one of the funniest ones of all time.
I mean, two late great people. Patrick Swayze.
Chris Farley.
So
good. I love it so much.
Taking a sip for Chris Farley. Anyway, Chippendales still exists. It does very well in Vegas. There's like a show you can go there. Does well around the world. There's a lot of shows you can see now. But it was what we would say like the zeitgeist. It caught onto something super special at a particular time.
Yeah.
And R.I.P. Nick. And that is our creep today. I guess it would be Steve Banerjee. It's the Chippendales Murder.
That good job, Margot.
Thank you.
What a fucking creep, man.
He's really bad, and I'm trying to think of the person. It's the Indian American person. He's an actor, and he did the movie with his wife about.
Naveen Andrews.
He did the TV movie in like 1980 or 2000.
Yeah.
No, Kumail Nanjiani.
Oh yes.
He's starring in a Hulu series about this.
Oh, I'm gonna watch that.
He's gonna play Steve Banerjee, which should be amazing. That's coming out later this year.
All right, I will definitely watch. Have you ever been to a Chippendale show?
No, I've always been to like the lower rent ones. They're expensive.
Yeah, I went to a Thunder Down Under for like a bachelorette party, and I was like, this stuff's just not my jam. Like, but everyone, by the way, all the women, I think all women there. I mean, men could have been there, but I think it was all women. They had a great time.
Steve was sued. It's not my thing either. I mean, Steve was sued for not allowing gender discrimination.
Yeah.
Which, okay, I guess that's true. But also for actual like racial discrimination.
Yes.
And that kind of bummed him out when he had to hire more black people and stuff like that. But
what a bummer.
But
what
that's
a creep.
It just has all these crazy twists and turns.
Yeah.
I just love this idea of a guy named Strawberry going around Blackpool trying to poison somebody.
What a stupid ass.
It's great.
Why don't we take a break and then I'll give you my not a creep.
Perfect.
And we're back. So I've got a good not a creep for you. I want to tell you about Antonia Crane and Strippers United.
Ooh, I don't know about this.
Okay, so Antonia Crane is an author, she's an activist and a sex worker, and she founded Strippers United. It's a labor organization for strippers to organize their workplace.
Nice.
And fight for better, safer working conditions. So there was a documentary that came out in the 90s, I believe, called Live Nude Girls Unite, and it was about the lusty lady here in San Francisco that they did unionize, and they were the first strip club to ever unionize. They became a member of the SEIU Local 790. It was the Exotic Dancers Alliance.
Nice.
Yes, and they were the only union strippers union in the country. Eventually, the Lusty Lady shut down. This was in like 2013 because rents went way up and the landlord was like, they just didn't renew and left. So the Lusty Lady doesn't exist anymore. But Strippers United, Antonia Crane was part of that movement and then started Strippers United, which is very active in trying to help sex workers, exotic dancers know their rights. Like they're very often their rights are violated because they don't know what their rights are and because they're doing something that in certain communities is illegal and then in other communities it isn't. And
but it's frowned upon.
It's frowned upon and it's like state by state and, they're sometimes treated horribly. I love it on their website. They have this kind of this mission statement where they said, "We seek non-community allies who share our vision. We do not seek approval."
Nice.
Which I think is a really smart thing to say. On their website, it's strippersunited.org. There's all kinds of links to resources like Know Your Rights, whether you're a full-time employee or a contractor. It lists out federal law protections. It links out to places to get support. And currently, this organization is working to help the strip club dancers at the Star Garden Topless Dive Bar in Los Angeles, which announced last month that they plan to form a union.
Good for them.
Yeah, and if successful, they will be the only strip club in the country to have union representation because the Lusty Lady is closed.
Right.
So, the reason Strippers United is helping the dancers from Star Gardens is 2 dancers went to the owner and said there's some unsafe working conditions here. And instead of dealing with it, they were fired. And then the other 8 dancers, got together. They made a petition. They presented it to management and was like, bring back these dancers. And it is unsafe here. And we need security protocols and things like that. And, the manager was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. So they've been out picketing in front. It seems like they're getting quite a bit of support. I read that the city buses drive by them all the time and honk their support to them and stuff like that. And this organization is helping them. Yes, why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't they be unionized? Their job can be really unsafe.
Yes.
There are people there that behave badly, that act like creeps. They put their hands on them. They're dancing in heels on a very slippery surface. Yes, they should be unionized. This makes sense to me. So I thought this would be a really good, not a creep. It's Antonia Crane. She also writes, so you can follow her on Twitter. She wrote a memoir that came out last year called Spent. She writes all the time. She writes for the New York Times, Playboy, Cosmopolitan, Salon, Huffington Post. She writes for all kinds of Bustle. I love to read Bustle. Yeah. They always have good stuff. And once again, it's strippersunited.org.
That is an excellent choice for a not creep this week.
Thank you.
I love it. Y'all, that is the show today. We will be back next week with a new episode. Is it a new season? Because this is episode 10?
Yeah. Oh my God. We're in season 16.
Season 16 is coming up. This is so exciting. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining our Patreon. Thank you for leaving reviews and leaving stars if you can. That would be amazing. If you have suggestions and you want to use social media, we love it when you use the Annie Potts GIF. We got one from Ghostbusters. And we always are looking for suggestions for creeps and also non-creeps. That's actually where we struggle sometimes, is finding a good counterpart to the person that we're talking about. Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com where I'm blogging on the reg.
Yeah, you
and
are.
You can find me, I am. And you can find me at The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. Where can people find you, Margot?
You can find me at Brooklyn Fit Chick for Twitter and Instagram. My site is brooklynfitchick.com. Thank you all so much once again for listening. Stay safe. Watch out for those lucite heels and spilled drinks when you're walking. That shit's real, y'all.
It is. Be careful.
Be careful out there. Don't be a creep.
The creep.
Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.